The thin walls. Mia moved into the apartment on the third floor of a rundown building in a quiet part of town. It wasn't much, just a small one-bedroom with peeling wallpaper and creaky floors. But it was affordable. After a rough breakup and a job loss, she didn't have many options. The first few nights were uneventful, but on the fourth night she heard it. A faint but unmistakable noise coming from the apartment next door. It sounded like soft sobbing. Mia paused, listening closely, wondering if she should knock on her neighbor's door to check if everything was all right. But the sound stopped as abruptly as it started. She shrugged it off as someone having a bad night. The next evening, as she was getting ready for bed, the sobbing returned. It was louder this time, like it was coming from right behind the wall. Mia pressed her ear against the cold plaster, listening carefully. A woman's voice, muffled but clear, whimpered. "Please, please stop." Mia's stomach twisted. Was someone in trouble? She had only seen her neighbor once, a woman about her age, with dark hair and a pale, withdrawn face. They hadn't spoken, just exchanged awkward nods in the hallway. Now, Mia wondered if that woman was in danger. She hurried to her front door, intent on knocking next door, but as soon as her hand touched the doorknob, the sobbing stopped again. The sudden silence felt suffocating. She stood there, frozen, straining to hear anything else. There was nothing, just the usual creaks of the old building and the hum of distant traffic. Confused and unsettled, Mia returned to bed, but sleep didn't come easily. The next morning, she bumped into the building's super, an older man named Mr. Garrison, as she was leaving for work. "Hey, do you know the woman in the apartment next to mine?" she asked, trying to sound casual. "I heard some strange noises last night. It sounded like crying. Is she all right?" Mr. Garrison gave her a puzzled look. "No one's lived in that unit for months. The last tenant left a while ago. It's been empty since..." Mia blinked in confusion. "No, that can't be right. I've seen her. Just the other day." Mr. Garrison shook his head. "You must be mistaken. There's no one there." A chill ran down her spine. She wanted to argue but didn't. Instead, she nodded and went on her way, her mind racing. Maybe she had seen someone else in the hallway. Maybe the super was wrong. That night, the sobbing returned. Mia sat in her darkened apartment, listening as the woman next door wept. This time it went on longer, the sobs turning into quiet, broken pleas. "Please, don't do this." It sounded so close, so real. Mia grabbed her phone and dialed the police. When they arrived, she explained the situation to the officer, her voice shaking. He was polite, but seemed skeptical, as he knocked on the door of the neighboring apartment. After several attempts, he turned to her. "Ma'am, there's no one here. The unit is locked, and the building manager confirmed it's vacant." "But I heard her," Mia insisted. "I've seen her." The officer exchanged a glance with Mr. Garrison, who had come up to unlock the apartment. Together, they entered the unit while Mia waited outside, heart pounding in her chest. Minutes later, they returned, confirming what the super had said. The apartment was completely empty. Mia felt a surge of embarrassment mixed with frustration. The officer gave her a kind but dismissive nod before leaving. But Mr. Garrison lingered for a moment, his expression more serious. "That apartment, a woman did live there a couple of years ago," he said quietly, glancing around as if checking to make sure no one was listening. "She had problems. One night, the neighbors reported screaming, crying, just like you said. By the time the police arrived, it was too late. Her boyfriend, well, they found him standing over her body. She'd been... His voice trailed off, and he cleared his throat. Anyway, since then, no one stayed in that unit for long. Some folks say it's haunted. Mia stared at him, speechless. Look, Mr. Garrison continued, lowering his voice. If it gets worse, you might want to consider moving out. These old buildings, they hold on to things. That night, Mia couldn't sleep. Every noise, every creak of the floorboards set her on edge. She kept expecting to hear the sobbing again, but this time it didn't come. Just as she was starting to relax, a soft knock echoed from the wall beside her bed. Knock, knock, knock. It wasn't from her front door, it was from the wall. The one she shared with the empty apartment. Her blood ran cold. She sat up in bed, her heart pounding in her chest. The knocking continued, slow and deliberate, like someone was trying to get her attention. Then she heard it. A whisper, faint but unmistakable, coming from the darkness of her bedroom. Help me. Mia bolted from her bed, grabbed her keys, and fled the apartment. She didn't stop until she was in her car, parked down the street, shaking and gasping for breath. The next morning, she started looking for a new place. She never returned to that building. And when she told her story to friends or new landlords, she always left out one small detail. After she ran from her apartment that final night, she checked her phone. She had a single voicemail, left just minutes after she fled. When she played it, all she could hear was faint sobbing, and behind it, the soft rhythmic knocking on the wall.